At the wedding, my son asked his stepdad to give the father's blessing speech, since he's more of a father. I congratulated them both and left early. The honeymoon they expected me to fund got canceled. I'm 43 years old, and this happened at my son Jake's wedding last month. Jake is 24, and I've been his dad since he was 3, when I married his mother, Sarah. His real dad was never around, and I became his legal dad when he was 5. Sarah and I got divorced when Jake was 16, but I always stayed close with him through college and into his grown-up life. Sarah got married again about 4 years ago to a guy named Marcus, who's in his early 40s and sells things for a living. From what I could tell, Marcus seemed fine with Jake, and I was actually happy that Sarah found someone. Jake lived with them for about 2 years after college while starting his job, then moved in with Emma about 6 months before the wedding. During those 2 years, he and Marcus got close. The wedding plans had been happening for about 8 months. Jake's fiancée, Emma, is a really sweet girl, and they seemed truly happy together. I was proud to help with their special day and said I'd pay for the honeymoon as my gift to them. We talked about a 2-week trip to Italy that would cost about $12,000, including flights, hotels, and fun stuff. I also helped with the wedding by giving about $8,000 for the place and the food. The morning of the wedding, I got to the place early to help set things up. Everything looked amazing, and I felt really happy for Jake. About an hour before the wedding started, Jake came over looking kind of nervous. He asked if we could talk alone. So we went into one of the side rooms. He started telling me how thankful he was for everything I did for him over the years. Then he said Marcus had been like a real dad to him lately, helping him with job stuff and being there every day while he lived at home. He'd been thinking about what would mean the most for the wedding. My stomach started to feel weird because I knew where this was going. Jake told me he decided to ask Marcus to give the father's blessing speech during the party, because Marcus had been more like a dad lately. He said I hoped I'd understand and that it didn't mean what I did for him growing up didn't matter. His words hit me really hard, like getting punched, but I stayed calm. I told Jake it was his wedding and he could choose what he wanted. I said I respected his choice and wished him the best. He looked relieved and gave me a hug, then went to tell Marcus about the plan. I sat in that little room for about 10 minutes, thinking about what just happened. 20 years of being this kid's dad, and he picks a guy he's known for only 4 years to give the father's speech. I wasn't really mad at Jake, but I felt really hurt in a way I didn't expect. At the party, I watched Marcus stand up and give the speech that should have been mine. He talked about seeing Jake grow into a man and how happy he was to welcome Emma into their family. Sarah looked super proud, and I could tell how much she loved this moment. After the speech, both Jake and Marcus came over to me. Jake thanked me for being cool about it, and Marcus said he felt honored, but also knew that I'd been Jake's real dad for most of his life. I told them both, congrats, for real. I told Jake I was proud of him and wished him and Emma lots of happiness. Then I said I'd be leaving a bit early because of some work stuff. Jake seemed a little sad, but said okay when I told him I had some important calls. I left the party around 7 p.m., about 2 hours after it started. While driving home, I called my travel agent and canceled the Italy honeymoon. Since I used my credit card and some bookings were still able to be canceled, I got back about $7,000 out of the $12,000 that I had spent. The rest was lost because of fees and things I couldn't get back. I also called the person who was in charge of the wedding place and told them I wasn't going to pay for any more wedding stuff. They told me there was still about $4,000 due on Monday, which I had said I'd pay before. I told them to ask someone else for the money. The next morning, I moved the money I saved from the honeymoon into my retirement account. I felt clearer than I had in a long time. I'd spent 20 years trying to be the best dad, and even though I didn't regret it, I saw now that people didn't really see how much I did. Update 1. 2 weeks later, Jake and Emma came back from their short honeymoon yesterday. They only had money for a weekend in a nearby city instead of the Italy honeymoon they planned. Jake called me Tuesday night, and I could tell he was confused. He asked if something went wrong with the travel plans. I told him I canceled the trip after our talk at the wedding. He was quiet for a bit, then asked why. I told him since Marcus was more of a dad to him, it made sense for Marcus to pay for the honeymoon too. Jake tried to take it back, saying he didn't mean Marcus meant more to him than me.
He said he just wanted Marcus to feel included and didn't think about how it might make me feel. I listened without saying anything, then told him I understood his view, but actions have consequences. Sarah called me later that night, and she was super angry. She said I was being mean and trying to hurt Jake for including Marcus in the family. I reminded her that I told Jake and Marcus congrats at the wedding and didn't make a scene. I just changed how much money I was giving based on what Jake said about who his dad was now. She said I was still Jake's dad even if Marcus gave the speech, and that I shouldn't use money to get back at him. I said I never warned anyone that I'd stop helping, and that I made my choices based on Jake's own words about his father. She hung up on me. I felt bad for Jake and Emma, but I also felt like I wasn't being used anymore. For 20 years, I was the backup dad, the one who was always there. Maybe now it was time for someone else to step up. Update 2. 1 month later. Things got more messy in the last few weeks. Emma's parents had paid a lot for the wedding, and now the place wants the rest of the money I didn't pay. Sarah and Marcus had to rush to pay the $4,000. I heard from friends that it caused fights between them. Marcus thought I would still pay for things after the wedding, and he didn't save money to cover the bills. Sarah was mad at him for not seeing this coming, and they had a lot of arguments about money and who should pay. Jake has been calling me a lot, but things feel weird. He keeps saying sorry for hurting my feelings, and says he still wants to be close. Last week, he asked if I could help him and Emma with the down payment for a house. I told him that kind of help should come from Marcus, since he's the main dad now. I was surprised because Jake had never asked me for money like that before. Usually, Sarah would say Jake needed help, and I'd offer to pay. Jake was asking me himself, which made me think he was starting to understand how his wedding decision changed things. I've been thinking about my own part in all this. I think maybe I was too helpful, always solving problems with money. I wanted to be the dad Jake never had, but I turned into a money machine instead of a respected parent. I'm not cutting Jake out of my life, but I'm also not going to be the person who always pays for everything. If Marcus is going to be the dad, then Marcus can handle the dad stuff too. Update 3. 3 months later. Things are falling apart between Sarah and Marcus. Jake told me they're going to counseling because the money stress from the wedding is causing big problems. Marcus is mad he has to pay for things that used to be my job. Sarah is mad at Marcus for not doing it without complaining. The house problem is also a big deal for Jake and Emma. They were counting on help with the down payment, and now they're stuck in a small apartment. Emma's parents can't give more after the wedding, and Jake's job doesn't pay enough to get the loan they need. Jake asked me to meet him for lunch last week, and I said yes. He looked tired and stressed, and I could tell he was starting to see how hard things really were. He told me he made a mistake at the wedding and wished he could take it back. He said he just wanted Marcus to feel included and didn't think about how it would make me feel. I listened, and I could tell he really meant it. But I told him this wasn't just about feelings. What he said at the wedding helped me see the truth about our relationship and my place in his life. I told him I was always the person he could count on, but maybe it was time for that to change. He asked how to fix things. I told him that respect doesn't come from just saying sorry, and that if Marcus is his dad now, he needs to stick to that. I said I'll always care about him and be there to talk or give advice, but the money help is done. It was a hard talk, but it needed to happen. Jake seemed to understand that what he said at the wedding meant more than he thought. He chose who his main dad was,
and that comes with real consequences.
Final update. 6 months later, things have finally calmed down and I feel much better than I did at the start of this whole thing. Jake and Emma are still tight on money, but they're getting by on their own. Sarah and Marcus are working on their problems and counseling. I know money is still a touchy subject at their house. Jake has called me a few times lately and we've had some nice talks. He's stopped asking me for money and now talks about work stuff and being married. Our talks feel more real now, less about money and more like a real father and son. I've started dating someone new, a woman named Lisa, who has grown-up kids too. She gets how blended families are and doesn't expect me to solve everyone's problems. We're taking it slow, but I like being in a relationship where I'm liked for who I am, not just what I can give. The money I saved from the wedding and trip went into fixing up my house and saving for retirement. I'm in the best shape with money I've been in for years, and I sleep better not worrying about someone needing help all the time. Marcus has helped a bit too, and I respect that. He helped Jake get a better job and taught him about money. Turns out, having someone else act like a dad has actually helped Jake grow up more. Looking back at the wedding, I see that Jake's words hurt, but they helped me understand things better. I spent 20 years being the one who always gave, but that never made Jake see how big that was. Sometimes people have to see what they've lost to understand what they had. I'm not mad about it anymore. Jake is still my son, and I'm proud of him. But now our bond is built on respect, not money. And that's way better for both of us. Sometimes the best gift you can give someone is letting them stand on their own.